welcome to the Harambe listening audience. My name is Gary Holland. I'm with the NAACP Education Program, and we wanted to inform you of the on Monday, July 25th, at the Julia Carson Center, we will be holding a conference forum in conjunction with the Indianapolis Concerned Clergy, and we are inviting you to join a discussion about education reform here in Indianapolis. We are an organization that empowers the citizens of this city to become active voices in their community and enact change. As relates to educational reform at the NAACP, we feel that we need to inform the community and empower them with a bigger picture, or the whole picture, when it comes to education reform. And we will be providing a series of forums looking at, number one, the entire picture, if that could be explained, moving to the series of solution-based engagement, successful strategies that could help our public school system, parents, teachers, and students become more successful in the academic success area. We have with us, just to give you a brief overview of tomorrow, we have Dr. Jim Sheriff of IUPUI, a part of the graduate program at IUPUI here in the studio. We also have online Miss Julie Vaughn of the Common Cause of Indiana. We also have Dr. Douglas Martin, who's the author of Hoosier School Heist. We also have Dr. Nathaniel Williams, who will be the featured moderator. And we also will have another graduate student, Gayle Cosby of the IUPUI. Before we go forward, Julia, are you present with us?
I'm on the phone.
Okay. Julia, again, is a part of the program entitled Common Cause. And Common Cause is a nonpartisan organization that works to promote representative democracy by ensuring open, ethical, accountable, effective government processes in Indiana. Julia will give us a good understanding about ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. Could you share with us, Julia, your information and research?
Sure, Gary. What we're going to bring to the table tomorrow night is that much of this so-called education reform that's taken Indiana by storm is being promoted by the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. This is a secretive, corporate-funded lobbying organization that masquerades as a public charity. Organizations or corporations like Eli Lilly, ExxonMobil, AT&T, Comcast, State Farm Insurance, Chevron, they provide the money for this group, and they're going to be holding a big meeting here in Indianapolis later this week, where they'll be meeting with conservative legislators from all across the country. They sit down behind closed doors in secret meetings and come up with model bills. And then these legislators will take this model legislation back to their state houses, where they'll introduce it, and hopefully, in Alec's case, it will become law. So many of the bad ideas that have surfaced in the Indiana General Assembly over the past couple of years, the school vouchers, right to work, various bad environmental bills, bills to keep wages and benefits low, many of these start out in these secret meetings that are hosted by ALEC. So we want folks to know that that is the bill mill where a lot of these bad ideas are coming. Many of these legislators are going to show up at the J.W. Marriott in Indianapolis on Wednesday. In fact, our governor, now the vice presidential candidate, Mike Pence, is going to be speaking to this group. So folks need to know that our legislators are spending time behind closed doors with these corporations that seek to get individuals to pay for their profits.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Vaughn. We will be coming back to you. Dr. Nate Williams, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Dr. Williams, in your research, how has ALEC affected education reform through legislation here in Indianapolis?
Well, one example I'll share with the audience. Once again, thank you for being on the show, and I very much look forward to tomorrow. Passed in 2014 Public Law 1321.
Excuse me, Nate. Dr. Williams, are you speaking through your speaker phone or on the actual phone receiver?
On the phone receiver.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit. Okay, yes, but keep going.
Okay. Yes, a bill was passed, 1321 in 2014, that allowed only Indianapolis Public Schools to partner with the Mind Trust to create the innovative network. And we'll be talking more about this free market portfolio model approach to districts tomorrow evening. But what was interesting, what we've seen in the role that ALEC plays in this, is that the Mind Trust network, which is actually a network of organizations that the Mind Trust has brought into Indianapolis since 2007, one of the main partners was Stand for Children. And Stand for Children has a PAC, which is out of Portland, Oregon, and this PAC allows them to give direct donations, direct money to public officials. Well, this PAC out of Portland, Oregon, gave over $23,000 to Senator Robert Vaughn, representative Republican in Indiana Congress. What is interesting is that Robert Vaughn was the ALEC chair or ALEC state representative from 1996 to 2004. Just as much as this very much kind of cookie cutter legislation that is unfolding here in Indianapolis, and now with Senate Bill 1009 across the entire state, we're seeing pop up in states like Wisconsin, North Carolina, and this is very much to ALEC's MO about corporations, private interests, literally drafting the legislation for legislators and then giving them money to actually push them through either the House or the Senate.
Okay, very good information. Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. We'll be coming back to you. Dr. Doug Martin, are you here on the line with us?
Yes.
Very good. Dr. Martin, through your research, what is the larger picture that we are dealing with as relates to education reform here in Indiana?
Well, I think you have to put it into context of what's going on everywhere. This is a vast movement, and it is very intertwined. I've spent at least 10,000 hours going over documents for my book, talking about all this. It is quite frightening. They have a network set up that includes Democrats, Republicans all across the country. The Mind Trust, as Nate was speaking of, they have a group now. It used to be called Seed Trust, and they changed the name to Education Cities, I believe it is. They are working in 24 different cities across America, and the people who are funding them are the biggest players in this school privatization. And you have the Walton family from Walmart. You have the Eli Broad Foundation. Eli Broad is a billionaire who has ties to the Clintons. He's involved in the school privatization in Los Angeles. His goal is to turn half of the city schools in L.A. Into charter schools. The guy gave $50,000 to Tony Bennett, so he supports both Democrats and Republicans. And then you have also the Dell Foundation and the Gates Foundation. Now, Gates was one of the original ones, I believe, who funded Stand for Children. Stand for Children outed themselves, as I mentioned in my book, in Illinois. The main CEO of the group at one point was talking to the Aspen Conference in Colorado, and there was a video that was posted online that somebody discovered, and then later it was taken down, but there's still copies of it, where he talks about going to Illinois and basically buying out certain Democrats in order to bust the teachers' union. So it's a union-busting outfit, and I can talk all night about how it's interconnected, but It is frightening because a lot of people have taken a lot of time and a lot of money and hired a lot of smart people to put this all together, and it works perfectly.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Martin. To somewhat look at it from a local perspective and how these corporations and groups are acting as resources, I would say. Dr. Sheriff, how has this type of network operated when it comes to the election of school board members?
Well, we can look at what's happened in Indianapolis to answer that. In 2010, you could run for the school board with $2,000 to $3,000 in funding. You and your friends and neighbors and colleagues could get together and raise that money, and you could successfully run for the school board, which meant the school board was open to virtually anyone. In 2012, when the Mind Trust Network, and I want to emphasize that the Mind Trust, as was mentioned before, is not a single organization. It's a whole network of organizations, some of which appear for a short period of time and then disappear, and then new ones come in. They're always manipulating what organizations are out there to achieve certain purposes. But when the network began to work on the school board election, they gave $50,000 to $70,000 to certain people who would support their agenda. So think about that. We went from $2,000 to $3,000 to run for the school board here in Indianapolis to $50,000 to $70,000. Now, what that did was basically eliminate ordinary, everyday Indianapolis people from running from the school board and made the school board accessible only to those who could agree with the Mind Trust agenda and then have that $50,000 to $70,000. Now, where did this money come from? This money came from local wealthy individuals, corporations, foundations, but it also came from outside of Indiana. So it's actually coming from a whole network of funding sources, but the same people that are funding the Mind Trust Network are also the same ones that are funding this huge increase in funding for school board members. I mentioned it was $50,000 to $70,000. Let me give you some exact examples with people's names. Gayle Cosby got $78,000 in 2012. Sam Odell got nearly $62,000 in 2012. Caitlin Hannon got $67,000 in 2012. Lanier Echoes got $65,000 in 2014. Kelly Kennedy Bentley got $53,000 in 2014. Marianne Sullivan got $73,000. So those were the people that the Mind Trust Network decided they would fund because they would follow their agenda. Now, all of them have followed that agenda except Gayle Cosby, who's figured out what's going on and has pretty much turned against that agenda and is working to get some new people into the school board. But if we talk about where some of this money comes from that's coming in to control who's on the school board, in Indianapolis, we've got from New York City, we've got from San Francisco, we've got from Dover, Maine, and then we've got local like the Indy Board of Realtors and the Indy Chamber of Commerce. So it's a whole range of wealthy individuals and wealthy organizations. For example, Michael Bloomberg, who used to be the mayor of New York, had committed $20,000 in 2012 to various ones. Democrats for Education Reform, which was mentioned earlier, committed $46,000 in 2012. David Hoffman with LinkedIn at California committed money. Alan and Jennifer Fournier from Wall Street and New Jersey committed money. Walmart Air committed money. A whole range of people are putting money into IPS school board elections. We have to ask, why is this? Why are these wealthy people who are putting huge amounts of funds that put the school board election out of range for an ordinary Indianapolis person, why are they putting all that funding into schooling? And what was mentioned before is privatization of schools. They want to turn schools into sources of profit. For example, Earl Martin Phelan, who runs only 2 schools in Indianapolis, a charter school and an innovation network school, and lives in Boston, makes $284,745 running 2 schools. That's more than the superintendent of IPS makes, who runs a whole district. That's what they're after. They're after changing the school system, changing so that our children are sources of profit. They don't really care. They're very good at PR. They've hired good PR people. They've stolen lots of parts of the civil rights agenda, and they'll say they care about kids. But if you look at the lack of success in many of their schools, yes, some are successful, but many of them are not. Some of them come into existence for 1, 2, 3 years and then disappear. All of this is about turning schools into sources of profit.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sheriff. When looking at gentrification and how the city of Indianapolis is pulling more of the, I say, European middle class into the city, and looking at gentrification and education, we have a student, a doctoral student of Dr. Sheriff Gayle Cosby on the line. Gayle, could you somewhat give us a overall picture of how the school system may be operating from a segregated perspective?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me to be on the show, and I just want to say I am a member of the school board, as referenced earlier. However, also a doctoral student and working with Dr. Shurick. One of my areas of research that I've been focusing on recently has been some interesting patterns of segregation in IPS. I've noticed that some of the highly desirable magnet programs, namely CFI or Center for Inquiry schools, and other magnets that typically perform pretty well, are being located in predominantly white areas of the city, either areas that have been historically white or that are becoming gentrified or have been gentrified. So what we know about the district is that it approaches 80% students of color. So there's roughly 20% white students in the district overall. But it would appear that the patterns of enrollment are suggesting that those white students are concentrating in a few schools. Center for Inquiry number 84 is located out on 57th and Central near the Meridian Kessler neighborhood. And that school, as was noted in several recent newspaper articles, is approaching 84% white enrollment. It is also one of 2 schools in the district that do not qualify for Title I funding because of the wealth of the families that are enrolled there. So when you look at the enrollment in that school, as well as the Reggio Magnet School number 60, which is right across the street from Shortridge, it's disproportionately white as well. We're looking at 60% white enrollment there. When you look at those high enrollments of white students up against the demographics of the district as a whole, which, as I said before, are roughly 80% students of color and 20% white, it's a cause for alarm, and it's something that Amos Brown, before he passed, was really working to raise awareness toward, as the district cited another Center for Inquiry school number 70. They pushed out the kids that were there. That school is located at 46th and Central. If you'll remember, it was about last October. They announced that school would be closing and relocating to make way for a 4th Center for Inquiry school. But concerning to me and should be of concern to the community is the fact that all of these CFI schools are located along the North Side corridor. There's one downtown, there's one near Fall Creek, there's now one going to be at 46th and Central, and then the 4th one is up at 57th and Central. So I think that people need to pay attention to what is happening here, and start to think about how to advocate to get, high quality school options in their own neighborhoods.
Okay, Gayle, that sounds great as it relates to your research. We're about to go to break, and we'll come back and give a wrap-up. Again, you're listening to the NAACP and Concerned Clergy Education Forum that will be held tomorrow at 6 p.m. We'll be back. 239-1310, 239-1310 is the call-in. Thank you.
Welcome back to Harambe here on AM 1310, the Light Radio 1. We're back here with you this beautiful day, this beautiful Sunday evening. And again, we're back with our special program with our hosting this initiative, hopefully educating you in what's happening in our community and what's happening in the arena of politics, which I call politricks, along with the educational initiatives. And the name of the game is economics, money. Old friend of mine used to say, it ain't about the money. And then I turn around and say, but it is the money. And so we have here, there you go. Money, 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 and that's what's happening. Our young people, our system in the education arena. I'm glad to have Doctor here and Gary Holland who are here, and we have guests on the air with us via the phone. And so we go into this last part of our segment of I don't have no cell phone. Somebody else's phone bugging. Reggie, know I don't carry them things. I do not believe in them things. But anyway, that's just me chiming in. All right, Brother Holland, let's come back. It's back to you. Go with it.
Okay, again, we are the NAACP Education Committee, along with the Concerned Clergy of Indianapolis. We are featuring a educational reform forum at the Julia Carson Center tomorrow at 6 p.m. We are inviting the community stakeholders and parents to be a part of this forum. And again, we are looking at education reform. And as the NAACP, we do oppose school vouchers and the privatization of schools. But at the same time, we are looking at a series to give an overall view of what is going on first, in which this is the series that we are looking at the overall picture, and then moving into a series where we're looking at positive strategies of engagement to help the parents, teachers, and students in public education. On the line with us, we have Julia Vaughn. We have Julia Vaughn of the Common Cause of Indiana, Dr. Jim Sherritt of the IUPUI Doctorial Educational Program, Dr. Douglas Martin of the Hoosier School Heist book, the author, Dr. Nathaniel Williams of Knox College, and Gayle Cosby, a doctoral student at IUPUI. We're going to give Julia a brief moment to kind of summarize and look at the data and information that you have researched.
Thanks, Gary. I just want to encourage folks to come out to the forum at the Carson Center tomorrow night at 6 o'clock to learn more about ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council's impact on education here in Indiana, because it's been significant. And they do their work in the dark. They hide behind this masquerade that they're a charitable organization. They hold these secret meetings, and basically they're a matchmaking service for a corporate conservative ideologues to get together with conservative state lawmakers and cook up bills to privatize our public education system. As one of the speakers said earlier, there's a tremendous amount of money at stake here, and folks need to be educated about what's really motivating so much of the change that we've seen here in Indiana. So ALEC is a big deal. Many of our state lawmakers belong to this organization, and that's where they're getting a lot of their ideas regarding education policy. So hope folks will be able to come out tomorrow night and join the conversation, because this is an important issue that we're seeing negative impacts all over our state, particularly here in Indianapolis.
Okay, thank you, Julia. And also mentioning that ALEC will have their national annual meeting here in the city of Indianapolis starting July 27th, and hoping to get people more aware so that they can have a voice in what's going on. Thank you very much.
Julia, let me throw this in. This is me chiming in. This is Tom Brown chiming in. Give the statement of what ALEC means. State that clear again.
That is the American Legislative Exchange Council.
American Legislative Exchange Council.
Correct.
Sounds like the KKK.
Well, you could draw some similarities. There's a lot of white men involved. Let's just say that.
Okay, thank you for your time. We are going to talk again, my dear. Thank you, and thank you for working with Gary and all of them. But this has got to be pulled out. I've done my homework, and you ain't lying. It's big money. Very big money.
Yep.
Very big money. And a lot of our politicians have been bought and paid for. All righty. All right. You got it, Gary. Go on.
Thank you, Julia. Dr. Doug Martin, you still with us? Could you give us a summary view of what your research indicates and how you will share that tomorrow at the forum?
Yeah, I hope everybody can come out. I'd like to, there's various groups I could talk about. There's the Gulen group, which is involved in the Turkey coup. That's running the biggest charter school operation in America. There's the Bradley Foundation, which a lot of people don't know about, which is has a racist agenda and has for a long time. But I think it's important that everybody understand this is not in a vacuum here. This is overall across the board. What's going on in the schools is just another symbol of a symptom of what's going on in our society. So I'd like to address that a little bit and to hopefully talk about some solutions, because if we don't do something now, it's going to be too late. If you look at the pharmaceutical company and their companies and Big Pharma's influence over the medical industry, the medical schools, the medical journals, the doctors, it's pretty much normalized at this point. So if we don't do something now, you're going to have a system that kids grow up in and will never question.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Martin. We will be seeing you tomorrow.
Dr. Martin, this is Tom Brown. Get me, I need to get a copy of your book, and I may use it in the classroom.
Great, thank you.
And you've done your homework, so we'll be looking to talk to you again because you took it to another dimension. It looks like I'd like for you to define what is the educational philosophy and definition of education in the Western world.
Well, I don't think, I think we need more social justice taught in the public schools. The public schools have problems too. You can't say that they don't.
Well,
I think there could be a little bit more empathy, a lot less testing, and various ways to love one another taught to our young generation.
There you go. You dead on it. I would think you've got a little taste of Bernie Sanders in you. Am I wrong? Have a great day, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Nate Williams, you on the line? Could you give us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, could you give us a brief overview and a summary of your assessment and data?
Yeah, I would just say definitely encourage the listening audience to make sure that you're in attendance last night. My goal is definitely kind of help making the links across our representatives of the other systems. I just want to, I would say, our thesis with the audience.
That's him.
Excuse me, Dr. Williams, do you have your radio turned up?
No.
Okay.
We're getting a feedback. Some say kickback. I'm saying kickback. But go ahead and talk and slow down for us a little bit here.
Okay. Is that better at all?
Yeah, you're getting there.
Okay. I would just let the audience first and foremost know that although this very much sounds like a conspiracy, it really is just business as usual. It is the continual historical exploitation of poor folks, especially black and brown poor folks. And additionally, too, we have to be cautious about painting this as, one particular political group or one particular ideology. From the research that we know, they keep saying innovative, innovative, innovative. I didn't need a PhD to know that innovative means new. This is not new, and it is being done currently in at least 39 states or 39 cities across the nation. But this has actually been around for a while and has been tried out in at least a dozen other countries since the 1960s. And what we know is that what it will result in is, once again, the continual exploitation of poor people, especially poor people of color, and resulting in uber wealthy living in the city while pushing those who are of poor socioeconomic status out to the rural area. We can see it in Chicago. We see it in New York, especially like Harlem, and we're seeing it right now in our own city. So do not be duped by what political party is behind this. Both parties are behind this. Just as much be weary of what's going on, not just here in the city, but across the nation and what has occurred across the world.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Williams, for your insight. And again, we are looking still to inform and educate the community of the entire process of education reform as relates to here in the state of Indiana. Not saying that this is, as Dr. Williams was saying, and Dr. Martin, that there must be some positive solutions that we can move into. But right now we have to have a total picture of what is going on so that we do not react to pieces of the pie when they are engaged, but understanding the total network. Dr. Sheriff, could you give us some overview and summary?
Well, I'm going to reemphasize a few issues that I talked about before. The first one is that in 2010, you could successfully run for the school board for $2,000 to $3,000. In 2012, a set of candidates got $50,000 to $70,000, and those candidates were the ones that won. That made it impossible for the ordinary Indianapolis citizen to run for the school board. That meant that one group, the Mind Trust Network, was backing a set of candidates, and nobody knew that. People across Indianapolis didn't know that there was one group funding these people and one group with an agenda. And those people, you could say they got bought. They became school board members. That included Gayle Cosby, Sam Odell, Caitlin Hannon, Lanier Echoes in 2014, Kelly Kennedy Bentley in 2014, Marianne Sullivan in 2014. Those people received that high-level funding and thus were successful pushing any other ordinary citizen of Indianapolis out of possibility of being on the school board. So we have a school board that we weren't told was being bought and brought to us by a single network of organizations with a single agenda, and now they have control of the school board of IPS. And now they're getting ready to run again. Now, one issue is, among those people I named, Gayle Cosby, when she got the funding, she didn't understand what they were up to, but as she learned what was going on, she's turned against it. And of course, they wouldn't fund her anymore. They're only going to fund people who are provided with the substantial amount of money. So one way to tell in the next election as to who's part of this is the level of funding there. We can ask them, what's your level of funding? What kind of funding? And if you're getting $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, then you're part of this group, because no one else can afford that kind of funding.
Doc and Gary, a question I got for you, because you've put out information there. I don't get much feedback on who's running for offices to change to change the nature, Gary or Doc? What people should we be listening to that may be interested in running, huh?
Well, we plan to, this is the Concerned Clergy of Indianapolis, along with the NAACP, plan to have a report card out after the forums that look at the potential school board candidates that are running. So hopefully in August, I think in October, I believe, that is Pastor David Green, who is the president of Concerned Clergy, and Crystal Ratcliffe will put out a report card regarding the candidates. I'm going to ask this question another kind of way. What kind of persons should we be looking at in regard to character and enlightenment themselves? And what kind of questions should they be able to answer to become good school commissioners?
May I address that?
Sure, Gayle.
This is Gayle Cosby. And
okay,
Gayle. As somebody who's kind of been through that mill, I would suggest that some of the questions are how have you supported IPS in the past? So we're looking for parents, volunteers, people who are really in it for the kids, for their community. We need to ascertain how these folks intend to represent their constituents. We, as board members, are elected officials. We need to be accessible to the people we represent. We need to bring information from the board to the community to keep the constituents informed of what's happening. We need to be mindful of where donations are coming from and at what level. So I would suggest that voters look beyond the 10 or 12 glossy mailers that come in the mail and think about, all the candidates, how people who may not have that $50,000 to $70,000 are getting their message out. So, if someone knocks on your door, engage that person, talk to them, what are you about? And where do you stand on school reform issues? Where do you stand on this issue of gentrification and segregation that we're seeing? Those are the questions we need to get at. And we also want people whose experiences are close to the experiences of the people they represent.
Well put, Gayle. I used to be a school commissioner, and I ran, 1990? You probably wasn't even born at that time. I ran in 1990, and my whole campaign cost me about $1,500, leaflets and everything, and you move throughout, and I ran at large, and I got so many votes, and then when my 4 years is up, they said, you going to run again? I said, no. The school board issue is a very funny thing. You can get bought and bossed inside there. It's unique of how meetings take place, and I'm not going to put that down. But you gave a good description of when people are going to run. I guess you can say, because it seems like nobody else wants to say, who are some good candidates out there? You don't represent an organization. You got any recommendations coming from you?
Well, I am still a current sitting board member. My term is not up until December, so I don't think it behooves me right now to give any endorsements. However, I will say that I'm aware of a strong grassroots movement toward enlightening voters this time around, really, to some of the issues, and I thank the NAACP and Concerned Clergy for their role in helping that message to get out into the community. I will say that I blog to try to raise awareness of what is going on politically behind the scenes on the school board and lift up different issues, and that blog is gailcosby.wordpress.com.
Okay.
And I'm hearing of a grassroots website that is out there to try to raise awareness of candidates, and that website is rips.org.
Okay.
ROURIPS.org, and I have visited that site, and it does provide information about current candidates, including myself, as well as some challengers that are emerging. So I would suggest that might be a resource for people who want more information.
Okay. Have you enjoyed being on the board? How do you like those closed meetings?
Well, sir,
I'm just throwing that
I don't know
at
if I need to tell you.
something else?
You know, as mentioned before, I was elected and elected on about $78,000 of education reform money intended to privatize the public school system of Indianapolis, and I had an epiphany probably about 6 months in and started to connect these many dots that your guests have talked about today and come to realize, look, this is not why I ran. So since that time, I've really embarked on trying to educate the community about the issues. That's why I blog and speak out in the manner that I do. So hopefully, 2 election cycles later, there are some wise voters this year, and maybe we'll see some people that really pay attention to this money and what it can mean for the demise of public schools.
All righty, thank you. We got a few callers coming. The line's jumping like crazy. Mr. Holland, you wanting to take some? We got an anonymous caller on IPS. Anonymous, you're on the line. You got a question?
Yes, I guess I don't know if I maybe have chose the incorrect platform for my question, but what is the IPS board members doing about them basically taking away, because they know about certain options with the Promise Zone grant that the city received, about, basically if you are encompassed, if your housing is encompassed within that Promise Zone grant, you lose your freedom to choose your child's education.
Okay, thank you. All righty. Anybody wants to? I think.
Did you want to respond to that,
Go ahead, Gayle.
Gayle can probably answer it.
So I will say that this coming week, we have our board meetings on Tuesday and Thursday evening at 6 p.m. And as I was reviewing the documents that are on the agenda for next week, I did come across a Promise Zone memorandum of understanding. And so all the information I can offer at this point, it appears that the Promise Zone, the Bonner Center, and other organizations affiliated along with the Mind Trust and IPS are looking to create an innovation network school at Thomas Gregg School 15. It appears that they are going to be turning that into an innovation network school. Beyond that, I'm not aware of any restrictions on enrollment, so I'm happy to talk offline about that because I'm not aware. However, if you want more information, I would suggest you might attend one of the upcoming board meetings, either Tuesday or Thursday evening at 6 p.m., and hear more about that memorandum of understanding concerning the Promise Zone.
Okay, you got John. You're on the line.
Yes, sir. I really don't have a question, but I wanted to inject something into the consciousness of the staff there at Harambe, the listening audience, and the panel that Mr. Holland has compiled here. And that is this. It would behoove everybody to get an understanding about what a cooperation really is and how the Supreme Court has expanded the rights and privileges of a corporation since 2010. And with those expansion in rights and privileges of a corporation, and there's a direct correlation between the national debt and the expansion of corporations' rights and privileges, and the emergence of what many folks call fascism, which is a merger between the state and corporations. And if we're going to identify, and I'm not trying to demonize all corporations, but if we're going to be able to identify this entity that seems to be taking over everything, we must have a firm understanding of what a corporation is and how there has become a merger between corporation and the state. and the correlation that exists between the rising national debt and the need for cooperation or private funding of what should be federal programs.
Okay, thank you on that observation. Jack, you on next.
Yeah, I don't know who they should pick, but I know they have to make sure they don't pick no well-spoken tokens and put them on the board.
Okay, all right, Jack. Okay,
I wanted to respond to John's question or his comment, which was a very good comment for understanding what is going on from a totality perspective in educating our community about what we are dealing with. And that is what we are trying to do at the NAACP and Concerned Clergy, is to educate the community so that we know how to navigate through the train that's running downhill at a fast pace and not throw rocks at it. That if we can become educated, we can understand what strategies of engagement that we could utilize to successfully help our children, our students, and our parents as this educational reform movement goes through Indiana. So we appreciate that comment, John.
Okay. Any other? Gayle, are you still there?
I'm here.
I'm going to ask you a question, Gayle, and nobody knows what that question is going to be. What do y'all plan on doing with addicts?
Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I've had many constituents contact me with concerns over losing a part of the property. The rumor mill is that the football field and the land surrounding addicts might be lost, and I'm hearing that time and time again. At this time I can't substantiate that formally, but it is something that I share concerns about as well, and I'm definitely keeping my finger on the pulse of what happens with that property.
What about, Gayle, as you see being on the board, there's many questions that sometimes people don't know really the right questions, and if I'm wrong, they really do not know the right questions to ask board members. Have you experienced that?
Well, what I've experienced is, was it you that said politics earlier?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so what I've experienced is that people typically ask great questions, but they don't get straightforward responses, and that can be very frustrating. So there's a lot of politicking going on where you ask a question and someone might talk to you for 3 or 4 minutes, and somewhere in there that, they confuse something that might seem like an answer, but it wasn't truly a direct answer. So I feel the pain of people who are concerned and ask questions of folks that are supposed to be elected to represent them, but they give oftentimes very twisted and very confusing and illogical responses to simple questions. So that's what I see happening.
Okay, Gayle, do you want to give a summary of why the community should come out tomorrow to get a great picture of what we're trying to communicate?
Yeah, so, yes, I would love for people to come out and listen to what's happening with ALEC, what's happening nationwide. I think the link here is that there's a nationwide trend of, whites that left the inner cities several decades ago at the point of desegregation of public schools are now coming back to the inner city, and that trend of gentrification is not just local, it is nationwide, and there have been efforts here in Indianapolis to assist, if you will, or make that an amenable choice for people that would like to come back from, Zionsville or Carmel or what have you, to live in Indianapolis again. I would say that the desegregation of public schools in the 70s was the catalyst for that flight, and it appears that it's going to be the linchpin, if you will, for allowing those people to feel comfortable in returning to the inner city. So tomorrow, for those that can join us, I would like to share more information about segregation, specifically in IPS, and why I think that this segregation is part of a much bigger picture in terms of the gentrification of a lot of our urban cores across the United States.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, I'll have a lot more specific data tomorrow to share.
Okay. Dr. Sheriff, you have any closing remarks?
Well, I would just say that democracy for school board elections in Indianapolis has been stolen. There's a small group, internal and nationwide, that have bought our school board, and they're following their agenda. They're not independent. They're not thinking independent. They don't like any dissent. They want 100% control. They don't believe in dissent, even though dissent is integral to democracy. They don't want democracy. They want authoritarian control of a very small group, overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly wealthy, of our school district. And we, the people of Indianapolis, our power is in people. Our power is in people, and we need to take this back from them. It doesn't belong to them. Our school district belongs to us. We will give you data that's publicly available, information that's publicly available tomorrow to help you to fight the fight.
Okay, very good. Again, you've been listening to the NAACP Education Committee and the concerned clergy's information as relates to the forum that we will be having at the Julia Carson Center, Government Center, that's 300 East Fall Creek Parkway. The Julia Carson Government Center, 300 East Fall Creek Parkway, tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. The public is welcome, parents and community stakeholders. Hopefully you will be there. Again, we are not for vouchers or privatization when it comes to the public school system. Although we know there are some positive strategies for Indianapolis public schools and other school corporations that are public, we must be able to understand the larger picture so that we can navigate and help our children. And this is why we are having these forums for the candidates, school board candidates, and also informational forums, which will be tomorrow, an informational forum. So I'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity, Dr. Brown, to inform your listening audience as we look at the care of our community.
All righty. Again, that's going to be tomorrow at the Julia Carson building from 6 to 8. Get there on time. Get there early. This is very informative. This will be a way you can dialogue, and you don't have any excuses. Things will not change unless you become educated and become innovative in your spirit. We already got innovation going on, but it's going on in your pocketbook, and you've been set up, like my friend Doc has just said. You know, our democracy has been bought. And I would just play with him, and we could have a good discussion. I would just say, Doc, we sold it. It didn't get bought. We sold it, and we sold it at a poor price. But anyway, that's just me talking. Again, we thank you all for being here, and we'll be talking some more. And we're going to take a 30-second break. Money, money, money.